I think he tends to fall in between like the, late lottery 12, 14 to 20 range. The Nets and the Jazz and one other team I think picks again in the late teens and 20s. Wizards 18, Nets 19, and Jazz 21. So I think that's like the floor for him.
All I hear is two things. Josh Giddey is what I hear when I think of him, and prospect. So he's going to need to, work on some things. The size is what attracts me immediately. Being a 6'9" guy, that can handle the ball and have NBA level passing, elite level pass, however you want to say it. He's that kind of passer. So it won't be hard for him to understand an NBA offense and run it. That won't be a difficult task for that young man. So that is very, very important. But the biggest issue is the shooting. Like, the shooting is going to be a problem. I believe he shot 27%.
27.3.
27.3%.
On nearly 5 attempts a game.
Yeah, so it wasn't like he was just taking one or two shots.
No, he was
shooting.
Them.
He was getting an opportunity to shoot those shots. So, and again, I've said this about Rondo, I've said this about Giddey, like guys who I know aren't great shooters, because he didn't shoot great from the field either, but guys who I know aren't great shooters, they still get double-digit points. It's still impressive to me, because he still was averaging 10 points a game out there, along with those, I believe, 5 assists as well, and rebounding. He uses his size, I think, pretty well. But he does turn it over. I believe he has like almost 3 turnovers
nearly
a game.
Nearly 3 turnovers a game.
So he does do that, and that isn't great, because once teams find that out and you're a rookie, they're going to be putting that pressure on him.
He's a really interesting prospect in terms of his offensive ability. He's a very high-level passer. And someone who I think is like going to be a good facilitator from day one of the better passers in the league. And then I think the questions are, can he round out his game both defensively and as a shooter and scorer to where now you feel really comfortable putting the ball in his hands? Right now it's like, can he be more of like a Tyus Jones type, or can he develop and become more of like a Luka type? Yeah. And I think that's a big range, obviously. Yeah. And I don't think he's going to get to Luka level. You've got to develop the three-point shot, which is a struggle for him. You've got to develop the off-the-dribble three, which is a whole separate story. But he has got some interesting tools, but also some really strong, glaring weaknesses.
Yeah, interesting tools is a great way to put it, honestly.
Just looking at some of these numbers, 30.8% on catch-and-shoot threes, 27% on off-the-dribble. 24.7% on off-the-dribble shots. And I feel like we've talked about this with Giddey, where it's like that's something that will help take his game to the next level, where you can be not just a passer, but a shot creator. And that's really, if you're going to be a high usage player in the NBA, you need to be able to score. And I think Giddey did a really good job this year of developing the ability to put pressure on the rim.
Yes.
Shot still a work in progress, but that really changed who he was, I thought, in a dynamic way, where now you can't just like play the pass against him. And so I think, Demin's going to need to work on that, but his jumper like looks a lot cleaner than Giddey's does. I'm just comparing to Giddey because that has been a common comp for him. But some other names, like he kind of reminds me of Joe Ingles a little bit. There's I was just looking at it on
somebody in the comments.
Joe
said
Ingles
he's more
had more
athletic
of a
than
shot.
Josh Giddey, and you just said he reminds you of Joe Ingles. Brain just broken.
Just in terms of like big guard who can like run an offense, run pick and roll.
Yeah.
At Yahoo, they comped him to Giddey and Anthony Black.
Black, okay.
At The Ringer, they comped him to Sean Livingston, Kyle Anderson, Giddey, Leandro Balmaro, and Denny Avdia. I don't think he's like as physical as Avdia, and I think that's kind of what I'm talking about with the driving. He doesn't really create separation off the dribble at all. He's very good at using screens. Like I think he'd be great with a rim rolling big. Yeah. So I totally can see him succeeding and developing that jump shot. He's got pretty good touch, great instincts. Obviously the size is like a huge plus. But I do think that shot is going to hold him back until he can really figure that out, because it's just so easy to either switch a center onto him and he's not going to be able to break you down off the dribble, or just play drop and force you to shoot. And if you're not able to punish teams, whether it's like stepping into mid-range jumpers or hitting that step back three, it's very difficult to score in that situation. So I think he's definitely got some intriguing tools, but for me, I was surprised to see Gavoni mock him to the Bulls maybe it was Jeremy Wu, mock him to the Bulls because like the Bulls have Giddey. And I feel like they're like, there's almost no chance that Giddey is not on the team next year. So to me, adding another one of those guys doesn't make sense. You could put aside 6 guards and all that stuff. It's just like those two players are very similar in terms of what they need in order to succeed.
Yeah, in their notes, Cavoni and Wu noted the whole Giddey comp thing, saying he fits alongside Josh Giddey, who is a restricted free agent. His fit, not he fits. His fit alongside Giddey will need to be considered along with Giddey's status. But he's the type of multi-positional prospect who could fit in a variety of lineups if his perimeter shooting progresses as expected. And that's the big if that everybody's talking about with him as a prospect and how high he'll go in the lottery if he does indeed go, and if he'll be there on the board at 12. But you pointed out it's 27% behind the arc, Dave, on a real number of attempts, not like a Dalen Terry rookie year number of attempts. And look, somebody else in the comments pointed out Ricky Rubio. It took him 7 seasons to learn how to shoot. And you might say, well, Josh Giddey is not as much of a problem or concern as a guy who can't space the floor as far as what the Bulls are building offensively because he just had a career year behind the arc. Great. We've also seen guys have career years behind the arc. And then what happens? Look at Io last season, 40%. This season, back down to 32.
Yeah.
Traded for Vooch, first 40% shooting behind the arc of his career. What's happened since? Well, shout out to Vooch this season. Wow, back up. But, it's a struggle bus of up and down if you are just not a pure shooter coming into the NBA. Yeah. There's steps forward, there's steps back. So I think that's why a lot of Bulls fans, some of whom are hanging out in the chat, saying pass, no thanks to Egor, says Drewish, and Fish said pass. Because we are seeing and hearing a lot of he's kind of got like a Josh Giddey skill set.
Yeah.
And also the similarity of in the shooting, not so much. It's less of a problem if Josh Giddey all of a sudden, because of this stretch of games from January to April, is like a bona fide three-point shooter in the NBA now. I'm not ready to firmly believe that.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, what still makes the fit a little weird.
And one more thing on him. If I understand, I'm saying a comparison, saying Rubio and guys like that, but Rubio was also a guy they were comfortable with taking their time with. And you have to be a team that's comfortable making him that guy, like 1 or 2 or 3 on your team, if you're going to take that kind of time for him to develop and grow, and get those kind of shots. Mm-hmm. So, you have to be patient if you're going to get this guy. Are the Bulls in a position to be patient? And
Rubio is also an elite defensive player. Obviously, Giddey and Demin will not be. But to me, the one big difference between Giddey and Demin is very much more, at least in what I've seen so far, half-court oriented. I think he's really good at, organizing, setting the table, creating open shots for guys in the half court. Giddey is much better in transition, both in terms of finishing and just pushing the ball up the court, whether it's with the dribble or the hit-ahead pass. And that's really, I think, what the Bulls are trying to be offensively, is this team that really runs. So to me, obviously it's a clunky fit with who you have there, but I also just don't think he necessarily fits with what the Bulls want to do theoretically.